Hey there, welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into something deeply personal, something that I think a lot of us can relate to at some point in our lives. The title of this video is How to Rebuild Your Confidence After Life Breaks You. And I want to start by acknowledging that if you're here, you might be feeling a little lost, maybe even shattered. Life has a way of throwing curveballs that can knock the wind out of us, leaving us questioning who we are and what we're capable of. But here's the thing. No matter how broken you feel, there's a path back to confidence, to strength, to a version of yourself that feels whole again. This isn't about quick fixes or empty motivational quotes. It's about real, practical steps, mindset shifts, and a commitment to showing up for yourself. So grab a notebook, a cup of coffee, or just settle in, because we're going to walk through this together. Let's start by talking about what it means when life breaks you. For some, it's a single event. A job loss, a breakup, a health crisis, or the death of someone you love. For others, it's a slow erosion, a series of small disappointments, failures, or rejections that pile up until one day you look in the mirror and don't recognize yourself. Maybe you've stopped believing in your dreams, or worse, you've stopped believing you're worthy of them. I've been there. I remember a time in my life when everything seemed to fall apart at once. I lost my job, my relationship was crumbling, and I was grappling with anxiety that made even getting out of bed feel like climbing a mountain. My confidence wasn't just shaken, it was gone. I felt like a shadow of who I used to be, and I didn't know how to find my way back. If that sounds familiar, know that you're not alone. The first step isn't to fix yourself or to pretend everything's okay. It's to acknowledge where you are, without judgment. You're not broken beyond repair, you're just in a season of rebuilding. One of the hardest things about losing confidence is that it affects how you show up in the world. You might shy away from opportunities, second-guess your decisions, or feel like you don't deserve to take up space. But here's something I learned. Confidence isn't something you're born with, and it's not something that's fixed. It's a muscle. And like any muscle, it gets stronger when you work it. It doesn't mean denying what happened or pretending it didn't hurt. It means choosing to focus on what you can learn and how you can grow. Instead of saying, I failed, try, I faced something really hard and I'm still here. Instead of, I'm not enough, try, I'm learning who I am and I'm enough for this moment. It sounds simple, but it's not easy. It takes practice to catch those negative thoughts and replace them with something kinder. Let me share a quick story about how this worked for me. After my job loss, I was terrified to apply for new roles. Every time I sat down to update my resume, my brain would scream, who's going to hire you? You're a fraud. It was paralyzing. One day, I decided to try something different. I wrote down all the things I'd accomplished in my previous roles, no matter how small they seemed. I forced myself to focus on what I'd done well instead of what I'd lost. It wasn't a cure-all, but it shifted something inside me. I started to see myself as someone who had value, someone who could try again. That's what I want for you. To start seeing yourself as someone who's capable of writing a new chapter, even if it feels impossible right now. Another key to rebuilding confidence is taking action, even when you don't feel ready. This is where a lot of people get stuck. They wait for the moment when they'll wake up feeling like their old selves, full of energy and certainty. But confidence doesn't come before action, it comes from it. Think about a time when you felt proud of yourself. Chances are it was because you did something, even if it was small. Maybe you finished a project, had a tough conversation, or just showed up when you didn't want to. Those moments are proof that action creates momentum. When I was rebuilding my confidence, one of the first things I did was commit to a tiny daily goal. For me, it was going for a 10-minute walk every morning. It wasn't about fitness. It was about proving to myself that I could follow through on something. Some days I didn't want to do it. But every time I laced up my shoes and stepped outside, I felt a little stronger, a little more like someone who could keep promises to herself. So what's a small action you can take today? It doesn't have to be life-changing. Maybe it's sending an email you've been avoiding, or spending 10 minutes on a hobby you used to love. The point is to choose something that feels manageable and do it, even if you're scared or unsure. Over time, these small wins add up. They remind you that you're capable, that you can move forward even when life feels heavy. And here's a tip. Celebrate those wins no matter how tiny they seem. When I started my morning walks, I'd literally say to myself, "Good job, you did it." It felt silly at first, but it reinforced the idea that I was making progress. You deserve to acknowledge your efforts too. Now let's talk about something that can be a confidence killer: comparison. In a world of social media highlight reels, it's so easy to look at other people's lives and feel like you're falling behind. When you're already feeling broken, seeing someone else's success can make you question your worth even more. I remember scrolling through Instagram during my low point and feeling like everyone else had it together. Perfect jobs, perfect relationships, perfect lives. It wasn't true, of course, but it felt true, and it made me shrink even further into myself. The antidote to comparison isn't to avoid social media altogether, though taking a break can help. It's to refocus on your own journey. Your path doesn't have to look like anyone else's, and your timeline doesn't have to match theirs. Confidence comes from honoring where you are and what you're working toward, not from measuring yourself against someone else's highlight reel. One way to break the comparison trap is to get clear on what matters to you. When you're rebuilding after a tough season, it's a chance to redefine your priorities. What do you want your life to feel like? What kind of person do you want to be? For me, I realized I didn't want to chase a fancy title or a picture-perfect life. I wanted to feel grounded, to do work that mattered to me, and to have relationships where I could be my real self. Once I got clear on that, it was easier to let go of comparing myself to others because I was focused on my own definition of success. Try this. Take a piece of paper and write down 3 things that would make you feel proud of yourself a year from now. Maybe it's learning a new skill, rebuilding a relationship, or just feeling more at peace with who you are. Keep that list somewhere you can see it, and let it guide you when comparison creeps in. Another piece of rebuilding confidence is surrounding yourself with the right people. The company you keep has a huge impact on how you see yourself. When life breaks you, it's tempting to isolate, to pull away from friends or family because you don't want to burden them, or because you feel like you're not fun anymore. I did this for a while, and it only made things worse. I felt lonelier, and my negative thoughts had free rein to spiral. But when I started reaching out, even just to one person I trusted, it made a difference. You don't need a huge circle of friends, but you do need people who lift you up, who remind you of your strengths when you can't see them. If you don't have those people in your life right now, that's okay. Start small. Maybe it's joining a community group, signing up for a class, or even engaging with online communities where people share your interests. The goal is to find connections that make you feel seen and valued. On the flip side, it's just as important to set boundaries with people who drain you or make you feel small. This can be tough, especially if those people are close to you. But confidence grows when you protect your energy. I had to learn this the hard way. There was someone in my life who constantly criticized my choices, and every time I talked to them, I felt worse about myself. Finally, I decided to limit how much time I spent with them. It wasn't about cutting them out completely, it was about choosing myself. If there's someone in your life who leaves you feeling less than, ask yourself, do I feel better or worse after being around them? If the answer is worse, it might be time to create some distance, even if it's just for now. You deserve to be around people who help you shine. Let's talk about failure for a moment, because it's often the thing that shakes our confidence the most. When life breaks you, it's usually tied to something that didn't go the way you hoped. A dream that fell apart, a goal you didn't reach, a mistake you can't stop replaying. Failure feels personal, like a verdict on your worth. But here's the truth. Failure is just feedback. It's not the end of the story unless you let it be. Every successful person you admire has failed, probably more times than you know. What sets them apart isn't that they never mess up. It's that they keep going. When I was rebuilding my confidence, I had to reframe how I saw failure. Instead of letting it define me, I started asking, what can I take from this? How can it make me better? That shift didn't erase the sting, but it gave me a reason to keep moving forward. Here's a practical way to work through failure. Break it down. When something goes wrong, write down what happened, what you learned, and one thing you can do differently next time. For example, after I bombed a job interview during my low point, I was crushed. But when I sat down to process it, I realized I hadn't prepared as well as I could have because I was so nervous. The lesson? Preparation helps me feel more in control. The next time I practiced my answers out loud, and even though I didn't get that job either, I felt prouder of how I showed up. Each failure became a stepping stone instead of a roadblock. You can do this too. The next time you face a setback, don't let it swallow you. Dissect it, learn from it, and let it fuel your next step. Another big part of rebuilding confidence is taking care of your body and mind. When you're feeling broken, it's easy to neglect yourself. Maybe you're not sleeping well, or you're eating whatever's quick and easy, or you haven't moved your body in weeks. I'm not here to lecture you about kale smoothies or marathon training, but I will say this. How you treat your body affects how you feel about yourself. When I was at my lowest, I wasn't taking care of myself at all. I was barely sleeping, living on coffee and takeout, and I felt sluggish and foggy all the time. It wasn't until I started making small changes, like drinking more water, going to bed a little earlier, or taking those morning walks, that I noticed a shift. I didn't suddenly feel like a superhero, but I felt more like myself, like I was worth taking care of. You don't have to overhaul your life to make this work. Start with one thing that feels doable. Maybe it's committing to 5 minutes of stretching every day, or eating one vegetable with dinner, or setting a bedtime alarm to remind you to wind down. These aren't just health tips, they're acts of self-respect. When you show up for your body, you're sending a message to yourself that you matter. And that message, it's the foundation of confidence. Over time, those small acts of care add up, and you'll start to feel stronger, clearer, more capable of tackling whatever comes next. Let's touch on something else that's crucial: forgiveness. When life breaks you, it's easy to carry around a lot of blame. Maybe you blame yourself for what happened, or you blame someone else, or you're angry at the universe for dealing you a bad hand. Holding on to that blame keeps you stuck. For me, forgiveness was a turning point. I had to forgive myself for the mistakes I'd made, for the opportunities I'd missed, for not being stronger when things fell apart. I also had to forgive the people who'd hurt me, not because they deserved it, but because I deserved to be free. Forgiveness doesn't mean pretending nothing happened. It means letting go of the weight so you can move forward. It's not a one-time thing either. Some days you might need to forgive yourself all over again. That's okay. It's part of the process. If forgiveness feels hard, start small. Try writing a letter to yourself or to someone else, not to send but to get the words out. Say what you're angry about, what hurts, and then write, "I'm choosing to let this go." You don't have to feel it 100% in the moment. Just the act of writing it can loosen the grip of those old wounds. Over time, you'll notice that you're carrying less, and that lightness creates space for confidence to grow. You're not defined by what happened to you or what you did. You're defined by how you choose to keep going. Another piece of this journey is rediscovering what lights you up. When life breaks you, it's common to lose touch with the things that make you feel alive. Maybe you used to love painting, or hiking, or cooking elaborate meals, but somewhere along the way you stopped. Reconnecting with those passions, even in small ways, can remind you of who you are at your core. For me, it was writing. I'd always loved putting my thoughts on paper, but during my low point, I hadn't written anything in months. One day I decided to jot down a few sentences, just for myself. It wasn't a masterpiece, but it felt like coming home. That spark of joy, that sense of "this is me," was a lifeline. What's that thing for you? It doesn't have to be something you're good at or something you'd turn into a career. It's just something that makes you feel like yourself. If you're not sure what your thing is anymore, that's okay. Experiment. Try something new, a dance class, a pottery workshop, a book club. Give yourself permission to play, to explore, without the pressure to be perfect. The goal isn't to find a new life purpose, though that might happen. It's to remind yourself that you're capable of joy, of creativity, of growth. Those moments of connection with yourself are like deposits in your confidence bank. They add up, and they help you face the world with a little more courage. As you're rebuilding, it's also important to redefine what confidence means to you. A lot of us grow up thinking confidence is about being fearless, always knowing what to say or never doubting yourself. But that's not real.